That's shelter to the number 989898 to get your free info kit from Birch Gold now.
Message and data rates may.
Fox News, I'm Therese Crowley. Trump trial today in New York. The defense cross-examines the former National Enquirer publisher about catch and kill deals to squelch negative stories about then-candidate Trump, which are legal. Going in, the former president was pleased with his lawyer's arguments before the Supreme Court.
Yesterday, I think in the Supreme Court having to do with immunity, I heard the argument was brilliant. I listened to it last night. I thought it was really great. I thought the judge's questions were great.
A decision could backburner Trump's D.C. trial on election interference. Also in Manhattan, President Biden in a Midtown interview, heavy security. Pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University have a deadline today to remove their Gaza Solidarity Camp. New protest today at George Washington University. America is listening to Fox News.
In the News Center, I'm Stephen Stone. This week has been very hectic in York County after last weekend's storms. Porter Gable is the Vice President of Communications and Outreach for York Electric Cooperative. She talks about what they've had to go through this week after the storms.
Luckily, we were able to restore power for everybody a little after 24 hours from the storm. We've seen stuff like this before, straight line winds and big damage, but this was a unique situation. It was a very specific area. We saw a lot of broken poles, around 20 broken poles.
Officials said that nearly 200 homes were damaged in the storms and nearly 5,000 people were left without power. And protesters at Columbia University in New York City spoke out against the violence toward the Palestinian people as Israel's war against Hamas rages on. South Carolina Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace, speaking on Mornings with Maria on Fox Business, said that Jewish Americans were being threatened by the protesters.
They exist, they feel empowered, they feel emboldened because of the way Joe Biden has handled this situation.
WRHI Rock Hill, W261CY Rock Hill. Good pharmacy. Rock Hill's hometown pharmacy for over 60 years. Camden Avenue at Ebenezer Road. Straight Talk on WRHI FM 100.1 and CN2 is presented by Founders Federal Credit Union. Relax, you're with Founders. Now here's Manning Kimmel broadcasting live from Substation 2 on Cherry Road in Rock Hill with Straight Talk, selected by the South Carolina Broadcasters Association as the state's top public affairs program.
And a good afternoon. Welcome into Substation 2, Cherry Road across from Winthrop for another edition of our Straight Talk program presented by Founders Federal Credit Union. Relax, you're with Founders. Our thanks to our co-sponsor today, Comporium, your friendly neighborhood tech giant. Piedmont Medical Center is with us today, a community built on care, and you can find out more about them online at piedmontmedicalcenter.com. Very pleased to have with us direct from Chester County, South Carolina, our adjoining county, Mr. Robert, middle initial D, Long, who is the Economic Development Director down there in Chester County. How you doing?
Yes, sir. I'm delighted to be here.
You're looking like you're all ready to do graduation pictures and what have you. Is that right?
Prom tonight, yes.
Prom. You're a little old to go to the prom, aren't you?
Well, those days are long past me, but my daughter is not. So looking forward for her, excited for her, yes.
Jeez. So it's been a while since we've had you on here.
Yes, sir.
Interestingly enough, I think it's fair to say that with all the growth that's going on in this metro region, Chester County is finally beginning to feel the effects of that. We're seeing some new growth, are we not?
Yes, sir. I've been here a little over 3.5 years. I would love to say I'm the X factor and all the activity is all to me, but I think a lot of it is we're sort of in the right place at the right time. If you think of the concentric circles kind of growing out of the Charlotte area, in short, it's caught up to us, and we're seeing activity from a residential side. We're seeing a lot of activity from an industrial. Larger industrial sites are a little more challenging to find in Rock Hill, while we still have them very plentifully available in our community. And it's just a pretty exciting time to be in Chester County.
Well, let's talk with something simple, which is a common denominator for many people looking for housing. Yes. Housing is it's just a big challenge ever since COVID hit.
Yes, sir.
We lost a lot of builders, a lot of projects stopped. Now they're getting going again, but everything is more expensive. Land is more expensive, materials are more expensive. But the further south you go, the more affordable the house becomes. And that's true in Chester County. You got new.
Very much so. Very much so. So, I think I've told you before, my master's degree is actually in demography, population studies. So it's not your typical degree, but I'm a little bit of a numbers geek. You go back to Chester County 100 years, our population's been almost unchanged. It's been around 33,000 for 100 years. Now, I think we're finally at a point where we're starting to see sustained residential growth. I think a big part of this first wave is folks that have been priced out of the market in Rock Hill. Rock Hill has historically been that more budget-friendly community. Well, right now, for new construction, a house is going to cost you more than $400,000. It's jumped $150,000 just in the last 2 or so years in Rock Hill. Whereas you can buy that exact same house in Chester right now for $100,000 to $125,000 less. And that's what's driving this first wave. So we have 6 developments that have been approved by council. 3,400 homes roughly. 2 of those are actually selling homes that are going vertical. Knightsbridge was the first. They're probably in that 270 to 310 price point. Walker's Mill was a NAR development, is the newest one to go vertical. There's probably about 50 homes under construction right now, and they're probably in that 280 to 320 or so price point. But very affordable in comparison to our neighbors to the north. And obviously, as the closer you get to Charlotte, the more expensive the homes become. For us, we're just another 15, 20 minutes further south, and I think folks are trying to, who are a little more stingy with their money and want their dollar to go further, they're coming to Chester.
Right. Now, of course, interest rates have always been a big deal, and they're a little bit higher than what they have been. A lot of people get very spooked out on that because we had years where we had no interest rates. I mean, it was basically free money. But 7%, 6%, whatever it is right now, is a little bit higher. Do you see that stymieing the market at all down in Chester County?
I think in some areas, I think the answer is yes. In our area where we're still right now the most affordable in the market, it's not. People are coming, and now maybe the folks that are, maybe that's part of what's driving it is, hey, with the interest rates, I couldn't afford that payment on that $400,000 house, but I can afford a $300,000 house, and I'm willing to go a little further south to enjoy that. So I think it definitely can play a role in the activity we're seeing in Chester County.
So you got two developments under
are selling homes right now.
Right, and you got 4 others that are approved.
Correct. So you have Stanton has just broke ground. That's going to be 700 homes. Also has plans for some townhomes and apartments. That one's I'm excited about because that's the only one right now on our Highway 9 corridor and has some about roughly 40 acres of commercial property on front. So I'm looking forward to some retail growth in our market. And then we have there's another one off of our biggest one thus far is called Winchester. That's going to be 1,150 homes. It's sort of on Highway 901 sandwiched between the 2 developments, Knightsbridge and Walker's Mill, that are selling homes. They have not broke ground yet, so I don't expect them to be selling homes until maybe end of next year at the earliest. And then Gaston Farm, 400 homes. That was probably the newest one to be approved by our council. And that one's going to be a little bit nicer home, probably more in that 3 to 350 price point. But at the end of the day, I hope we want variety of housing. We want a workforce housing to executive housing and everything in between. And we're starting to see some segmentation in our market where you got variety of options, right? Which is fantastic for a home buyer.
So when you put all these developments together, the round number of new homes potentially for all 6 of them would be what?
About 3,400 homes has been approved.
3,400 homes. My gosh.
And there's one, most of them are around exit 65, the Richburg area. One of them is actually has broke ground in the Chester area off the Chester-Cochran bypass. That one's off of Village Drive. But nonetheless, there's some excitement going on. There's still plenty of other developers kind of knocking on our doors. And one of my predictions has been within, I think, 3 or 4 years, we're going to kind of come out of nowhere, and percentage-wise, we will be the fastest-growing county in the Charlotte region because our base is so low to start, which is only around 33,000 residents at the moment. When we start adding 500, 1,000 residents a year, we're going to, same thing percentage-wise, it is a huge percentage jump for us as a community. And it's one of those weird things because it takes about 2 years for what's happening on the ground today to reflect on the Census Bureau information. And so if you go to the Census Bureau, they still show us as one of 2 counties in Metro Charlotte losing population, which is almost laughable if you live in Chester right now. But when that data finally catches up, we're going to kind of come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're the new hot place in Metro Charlotte, basically, for growth.
Now, to make this really work well, you got this new housing, you're going to have these new people, 3,400 homes, that's probably could be close to 10,000 new people in these homes. You got to have some retail to go with it.
Yes, sir.
So are you seeing any people knocking on the door in terms of retail?
Well, the one thing I do say is most of these developments, they don't build all 10,000 homes in day one. Right?
Yeah, I got that.
That's generally over, say, a 6 to 10 year build out. But yes, there's some the growth happening our way. But one of the things we have in our area is a massive amount of retail leakage. There are just certain shopping opportunities we just simply do not have at the moment in Chester County. So one of the things we're starting to have some discussions right now is with these rooftops coming in, typically retail likes to follow the rooftops. Can we be a little more proactive in the community in shaping that future when it comes to retail? From that perspective, we have engaged and got a proposal from a company out of Birmingham, Alabama called Retail Strategies. They spoke at a workshop a little over a month ago. They're going to be back on the agenda for the 6th of May. And we're starting to have a conversation. Instead of just letting it happen, can we shape that future versus just sitting back? And I think, me personally, I think it's a good thing for us to do. We do have like a local option sales tax. And one of the rhetorical questions I will say sometime is, how much further can our local option sales tax dollar go for capital projects in Chester County if we had more shopping opportunities? So I'm looking forward to that because I think a lot of folks want to focus on the negative, and there are some growing pains associated with the growth. But there is some positive, and one of those positive is retail having more shopping opportunities and the ability to get more local option sales tax from that growth.
So Retail Strategies is a company?
They're a consulting firm.
Consulting
yes,
firm.
Yes, sir.
And they come in and take a look at what you got and figure out what you might be able to do?
Yes, so what they'll do an analysis of your area. They do monthly reports from the post office. So they know where the growth is happening, so they can take that into account. They also do an analysis of your, the stratation, as far as the population, the age, the education level, disposable income, so that they can then go out and create a profile of your community that they can then knock on the doors of those developers that are in a growth mode. Not all retailers are in a growth mode. They know which ones are. And for me, I'm not going to do a cold call for Publix. I don't know who that person is, and you waste a lot of time trying to get to that right person. Whereas these folks, they can say, well, you're not a good match for Publix, but you could be a good match for this grocery store, and we'll reach out we'll be an agent on your behalf to reach out to that developer, and they can really get your foot in the door. They've actually done work in Union County, North Carolina, and Union County, South Carolina. They've had some great results over in Union County, South Carolina. I think they've attracted about 9 retail establishments over there, including Starbucks. And so we're looking forward to to hopefully moving forward with that process, looking really at that greater Exit 65, Richburg area. But there's 3 good restaurants near my office, right? The Exit 65. I would love to add some more options to that mix in the future, and it will happen.
So, with all that being said, you mentioned one word that is always important to any community in terms of trying to attract people. That's education. There have been a couple of efforts that I can remember off the top of my head to approve a bond referendum down there in Chester County, because you got some old schools that need to be rehabbed. They haven't gone through. Is there anything, I guess, churning down there that might bring new life to this?
Same thing I kind of say out of the politics of it, but they did have a bond referendum I think about a year and a half ago that did not pass. That was, I think, they've had more than one attempt to do that, and I think a lot of it has happened because of the growth has been talked about but has not actually occurred.
Right.
I think right now they are trying to put it on the ballot for November, and so now it's no longer hypothetical that we're growing. You can actually physically see that we're growing, so that may change the minds of some voters. The one thing I really do think they're doing a better job this time around is they're doing their listening tour, listening to folks to develop their plan. Last time they sort of presented their plan and didn't really have input on the front end. Now they are doing a much better job of trying to solicit input from the citizens of Chester, and we'll just have to see how if that results at a passage or not. I couldn't vote the last time. I didn't physically live in Chester at the time. This time I do, and I do have that ability to vote.
Is that something, when it does come up, that you would ring the bell to industries that are there? I mean, would you go to GT Tire and say, look, this is it's coming up on the ballot. I'd love you to try to rally your personnel to go vote for it.
Not me, because I work for Chester County. I'm a government employee, so I don't get involved with that. But we do have other organizations, such as our Chester County Chamber of Commerce, our Chester Development Association. Right. There are other kind of nonprofits that could play in that sphere if they wanted to. Me as a government employee, I'm just apolitical.
Okay. What else I was going to ask you about that doggone thing? All right, so you got the schools being, hopefully, something will come up in November. You have the retail strategies working with you on trying to develop retail. The big piece down there, of course, what you've had a lot of success with, is the industrial side. You've had, announcement after announcement, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But one of the biggest to hit the state of South Carolina was, and I can't remember the name of it again, begins with Albemarle, right? Which is going to build the lithium batteries.
Well, they're doing the lithium hydroxide processing, so they're not making the batteries itself. They're making a base ingredient for the creation of lithium-ion batteries. We announced that project last March. $1.3 billion, a little over 300 jobs. Average salary of $93,000, which is more than double our county average. They were originally expected to break ground in May of this year. That's been the plan. They are still actually spending money on the site. They do own the property, and they're doing work on the site from a mitigation perspective. But there was an announcement that came out earlier this year that them pumping the brakes a little bit on some of these announcements, and this was one of those. So we are not expecting them to break ground this year. We are still, however, very optimistic that they will be breaking ground in the future. And I think a lot of that's what things driving it at the moment is the price of lithium. The price of lithium has come down quite a bit in the last 12 months. That being said, 2 years ago, there were quite a few about a dozen battery projects, including one in South Carolina over in Florence, South Carolina, that were announced. Some of those battery projects are coming online this year. I'm a simple man, but I can only assume as some of these battery projects start production, the cost of lithium, the demand for lithium will go up, and then hopefully we're right back in business with Albemarle on that project. I will say they're great to work with. I still talk to them, on almost a weekly basis. I was just talking to one of the guy who will be the site manager for the project. They are still trying to be involved in the community and very willing to talk with us.
Well, that's hopeful. Of course, the big thing that has to happen is we got to see a market develop for these electric cars, and despite all the efforts by Washington D.C. to ram them down the consumer's throat, consumer is not buying it yet because the technology's not there yet.
Well, in the price point. I think that's the other thing driving it. So I remember going to conferences 2 years ago, and they had these really rosy expectations of by 2040, X percentage of every car bought or purchased or sold will be an electric vehicle. And I've said all along that I think the EVs are coming. However, I just don't think they're quite as rosy. Their predictions are a little too rosy. And so I think that what we're seeing right now, with the price of all vehicles still, in my mind, a little too high post-pandemic, EVs are no exception. And I give the example of F-150. If the F-150 Lightning was the exact same price as your regular F-150, more people would buy it. Most folks aren't going to pay a $20,000 premium for the privilege of owning the EV version of it, right? Okay. So I think but hopefully same thing as more battery suppliers, as more the entire supply chain is really very much growing. It probably represents about 20% of my project right now are EV supply chain related. That hopefully that translates over time into lowering prices so that the consumer is more excited about buying that electric vehicle.
Yeah, there's got to be a whole lot of infrastructure issues resolved. Mm-hmm. I mean, they got to get more charging stations up, right?
Yes.
They got to get these vehicles so they can go further than whatever it is, a couple hundred miles.
Right.
I mean, anybody who wants to go to the beach is going to have to stop down in wherever and see if you can find a charging jack.
Well, the one thing that's been frustrating, there was over $1 billion set aside for electric charging infrastructure, and 2 years later, virtually no chargers have been built, and that's a critical piece of the pie is. If I got to drive to Alabama to visit family, where am I able to stop along the way to charge this vehicle? And that's a critical component. You're starting to see some movement now, but in my mind, it's a little too slow.
All right, a little too slow. All right, we're going to take our mid-program break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Robert Long, who is the Economic Development Director down in Chester County. Our broadcast, of course, presented by Founders Federal Credit Union, Relax Here with Founders, and by Comporium, your friendly neighborhood tech giant. Good Pharmacy is with us, your hometown pharmacy. Ebenezer Road at Camden Avenue in Rock Hill. Okay, you guys are smart. I know you are, Robert. What do we do here at Substation 2, Cherry Road across from Winthrop? Fresh subs and salads 6 days a week. At the count of three, tell them how it's done, boys. 1, 2, 3.
Slice, slice, slice. Garden, garden, garden.
Back after these words.
If it's 12:30, it's Straight Talk on WRHI and CN2.
Have you ever wondered why so many people enjoy dining at Substation 2?
Good fresh food, even fresher than Subway, and it's also on the paleo diet.
I like the people.
I like the food and being picked on.
I'm Charlie Ruffalo, and I guarantee you'll feel the same way after eating here at Substation 2, Cherry Road, across from Winthrop.
Relax with a discounted mortgage rate from Founders Federal Credit Union without paying for discount points. For a limited time, don't pay the 1% fee and get the lower rate. And don't forget, Founders never charges for PMI or private mortgage insurance. Unlock your dream home with a great rate and a Founders expert to guide you through the home financing process. Stop by a convenient office location or apply on Founders online by May 31st to lock in your lower rate. Visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage to learn more. Terms and conditions apply. Membership qualification required. Equal housing lender.
Dr. Carrie Watson, the trauma medical director at Piedmont Medical Center, says she's very proud of what's being accomplished at Piedmont.
We are able to do robotic surgery. We are a robotic center of excellence, and that's robotic surgery for general surgery like gallbladders, hernias, colon. We also have robotic urology, so that's things like kidney removals and things with your bladder. We also have robotic neurosurgery that we're doing, and that's pretty amazing. Not a lot of places have that.
Piedmont Medical Center, a community built on care.
When disaster strikes, one of the most important things is getting life back to normal. A little compassion can go a long way. Paul Davis is here for you. Paul Davis is committed to handling any property damage with exceptional care because what we do is about more than property. It's about people. We have the training and expertise necessary to completely restore your property fast. For all your cleanup and restoration needs, call the experts at Paul Davis Restoration at 329-1140 or find us online at pauldavisrockhill.com.
Introducing 2 new high-speed internet options. Comporium has created 2 new levels of service that give you access to fast, reliable internet for a remarkably low monthly price. Whether you prefer the Lite or the Essential plan, you can do everything you want online without spending too much. Prices start at $29.94 per month for Lite internet, and Essential internet is under $50. Both plans offer fast internet and free virus protection. Call Comporium today to sign up. 833-619-1848.
There are lots of reasons why people like dining at Substation 2.
The food, the number 19 is the best.
When I want lunch, I come to Substation 2 because I can't remember never not coming here.
I'm Charlie Ruffalo, and I guarantee you'll feel the same way after eating here at Substation 2, Cherry Road, across from Winthrop.
Straight Talk on WRHI FM 100.1 and CN2 is brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Relax, you're with Founders.
And back we are here at Substation 2, Cherry Road across from Winthrop. We have Robert D. Long from the Chester County Economic Development Department. He's been kind of solo here for a while, but you said you got a new assistant coming on.
I've been a one-person shop for WRHI the last 3 weeks. My previous assistant director, Chris Phillips, when you hire great talent, other folks eyes that great talent on occasion, and he was hired by a consulting firm, does like community consulting, left me about 3 weeks ago. My new assistant director, she's Karen Davison. She basically most recently has been with the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, and before that she spent some time in the Charleston Regional Development Alliance, but brings a great background in economic development. Has never been a local economic developer at the local level. She's always been at the regional level, but she starts next week. I tell her this is where the magic happens is at the local level. This is where we really are in the trenches when it comes to economic development, and I'm really excited for her to come. I think she's going to be a fantastic addition to our Chester County economic development.
And you got one more coming back as well?
Well, I also have my admin had been out for a few weeks after the minor outpatient surgery, but yeah, she's back Monday as well. So she's doing well and recuperating, and both of them will be back on Monday or start on Monday.
Okay, so the phone is continuing to ring?
Activity has not slowed down one iota. Now, so despite what you hear in the economy, this notion that we're trying to talk ourselves into a recession. I've heard the recession word for 2 freaking years now, and it's gone nowhere, at least at my level. At my level activity is almost identical to the same time last year. We're just logged in project number 27 for the year. We are actually on pace to probably have another 90-plus projects this year if it holds. And of course, for us, project is it's an at-bat, right? It's an opportunity to hopefully have some investment or jobs located in our community. Now, I'll say the type of projects we're seeing this year are quite a bit different than last year. Last year, we saw this I call second wave of EV projects. Maybe not quite as capital intensive as the billion-dollar projects we saw 2 years ago, but still, nonetheless, multi-hundred-billion-dollar projects and a lot of activity. This year we're seeing I call a third wave of EVs. Maybe it's 50 to 100 million, not quite as capital intensive, not quite as big, which is fine. Right now we're still running probably only about 4.5% unemployment, so that's perfectly fine. We're more excited about the quality of the jobs, not the quantity of the jobs in Chester. But activity is good. We have quite a few empty buildings right now. You hate to see a company go, but if they do go, we're the proverbial silver lining. We now have a building we can market, and we may end up with a company with more jobs, better jobs, higher wages, et cetera, that will come in behind that. Right. And we got quite a few projects we're finalists for right now that are tied to existing buildings. Can't go into great detail at the moment, other than hopefully one of those will announce in June, and we might have another announcement sometime before the end of the summer.
As you point out, when the phone rings, that just puts somebody in the queue because they're at bat. Right. You don't know whether they're going to hit a single, double, or they're going to foul out or whatever.
One thing that's kind of frustrating in our job a little bit, I tell people, while 300 is a fantastic batting average, if we bet 150, it can be a fabulous year if it's the right 15% of our projects that we get across the finish line. And generally, people don't hear about the 85% of the projects that we work that don't come, that we came up at number 2 or number 3, and we made various levels of cuts before we ultimately were not selected. Generally, those do not make the front page of the paper, at least you hope they don't. And then, but when we do have those announcements, obviously we do, want to have announce that, and it's at the end of the day, it's the company's decision. But if it's up to me, we're going to yell it from the rafters that this project's coming to Chester County if they'll let us.
So when you strike out, which everybody in economic development does, what are you learning from those prospects that might help you have a better batting average?
Oh, sure.
By the way, I gave him something for you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yes. I mean, you try to learn. We do try to do a postmortem on projects, particularly ones that we came down to, say we're the final 2 or 3, and it was down to us in North Carolina or us in Georgia, and they ultimately choose a different state and not us. We try to do, and oftentimes, particularly if it's site selection, consultant-driven projects, we can talk to them. We know them. We talk to them. We have projects throughout the year with these folks, and they'll tell us, hey, here's what ultimately led to them coming to go into this location instead of your location. And some things, times it's geography. Hey, it's just they like to build them better. Your building was 50. They really needed 60. This building is 60,000. It's a much more perfect fit for what they're looking for. So there are sometimes things that are beyond your control, but then there are sometimes they say, hey, one of your guys you had at that meeting did you no favors, right? And so we try to really be selective on who, it's as a need-to-know basis as you have those opportunities to meet with utilities, we meet with folks in our community leaders, elected officials. Who are we putting in front of these folks? And there's some folks, I won't give names, that just do not do a good job of selling our community. And if they don't do a good job of selling our community, I don't need them in front of the prospect, right? Unless I absolutely have to, right? And oftentimes they will interview existing companies. And generally when they do interview existing companies, we're not in those meetings, so I have no control over what Gallo says to that prospect that's talking to them about, hey, this guy is a salesperson. Tell me what it's really like with the workforce in our area. You hope they tell a good story, but we don't. There's some things beyond our control. But I've learned to be a little patient. Particularly, I've been doing this almost 30 years. I firmly believe companies ultimately go where they need to go. My priority is obviously Chester, followed by the I-77 region. We're a member of that organization, and then South Carolina. Nothing against North Carolina. I'm a South Carolina boy, and I've had a project recently we helped bring to the state that located in Sumter, South Carolina. Pretty significant $500 million project, and I was proud. I hated the fact that it did not end up in my community, but I was delighted that it decided to locate in South Carolina. Sure.
And that's the whole purpose behind the alliance, is to market the whole area.
Yes, companies do not see county lines or city lines, or state lines. They want to know where the talent's coming from.
So let's talk about the 2 Gs. Tell me how Gallo and how GT Tire are doing.
I'll start with GT real quick. GT Tire, I just went. They had their science and mathematics events. They've been doing that for years. They've added art, so it's now STEAM. So they had their STEAM event, which is all the schools, all elementary, all middle, all high schools. Each have a team. They have a project. A lot of it's engineering focused. They added this art component, so it had to also not be functional, but also pretty as well. There had to be some flair to it. And they had that program. They've been doing it for years. It's been a big success. They've added some equipment last year. year, and they are continuing to ramp up production where they are. I think right now there are over 700 jobs, and they're still very much hiring in our community. Hopefully, at some point, they're getting close to filling that building up, the existing building, which is about 1.5 million square feet. So hopefully, in a couple of years, maybe we're having a conversation about them expanding. But right now, they are doing very well. They do produce drift tires in Chester County, in addition to passenger and light truck tires. And they're actually hosting their annual event. This will be I think the 4th year in a row they've hosted the drift tire. They're a sponsor of a drift team. Fantastic event if folks are able to go. It's a chance to tour the facility, have lunch, and then you get to do a ride along with the professional drift car riders.
And it is something to see. I tell you, that's quite a plan. 30 seconds. Tell me about Gallo. How are they doing?
Gallo, I just talked with them just a few weeks ago. They're probably around 280 employees. They are ahead of schedule of where they expected to be, going up to their ultimate of 496 jobs. They are doing extremely well. They've done a really good job. A real tip of the hat to their HR team and their recruitment team has done a fantastic job of really positioning Gallo as an employer of choice, and it shows in their recruitment.
I'll tell you what, there's another plant. I mean, you better get your walking shoes on because it's tough to walk from one.
Hopefully, it's a small enough group you can do the golf carts. If you have to walk it, yes, it's a long walk.
Yeah, it was a long walk. Well, listen, Robert, thanks very much for being here today, updating us on what's going on in Chester County, and obviously quite a bit. Robert D. Long, Director of the Chester County Economic Development Department, our guest this afternoon on our Straight Talk program, presented by Founders Federal Credit Union, Relax Here with Founders, and by Comporium, your friendly neighborhood tech giant. All right, one more time. Here we go. We're going to see how awake some people are who have been over here snoring and eating some lunch and all that kind of stuff. All right. Oh, Buster's here, so we're all set to go. Fresh subs and salads 6 days a week here at Substation 2. How do we do it? 1, 2, 3.
Slice, slice, slice. Garden, garden, garden.
Not bad. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on the radio come Monday. Bye.
South Carolina's most honored radio station. News Talk 100.1 WRHI Rock Hill. W261CY Rock Hill. The voice of York County.
An OTS media station.
He says it should be over. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. Former President Trump on day 8 of his New York hush money trial, telling reporters outside the courtroom.
We're doing very well in this rig trial. Everybody knows it.
Inside, it's day 4 on the stand for former tabloid publisher David Peckers, testifying under cross-examination that he made deals for years to protect multiple celebrities, including the former president, from potentially damaging stories. Prosecutors say the former president falsified business records to hide hush money payments as part of an illegal conspiracy to affect the 2016 election. President Biden says he'd be happy to debate the former president during an interview with the Howard Stern show, where he also focused on abortion.
If I'm elected president again in the second term, we're going to be able to overrule them, not overrule. We're going to be able to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again.
That interview just a few miles from Columbia University, where a pro-Palestinian protest continues.
The White House says President Biden will call out hateful rhetoric when he sees it. But unlike the House Speaker Mike Johnson, while Biden was in New York, he chose not to see where some of these campus protests have been taking place.
Fox's Mark Meredith at the White House. At Columbia, the tents that sparked similar protests at campuses around the country remain.
Columbia University is trying to figure out how to clear out that pro-Palestinian encampment in time for the undergraduate commencement on May 15th. A university spokesperson says there's progress as discussions continue with student demonstrators, and those demonstrators, they've pledged to stay camped out until the university meets their demands.
Fox's CB Cotton, those demands include divestment from Israel. Some U.S. cattle moving across state lines will have new electronic IDs. The Agriculture Department just announcing the new requirement to better track disease outbreaks. Beginning Monday, interstate dairy cows have to be tested for bird flu. America is listening to Fox News.